Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Nick Thompson. You may know me from Netflix Love is Blind, but on this podcast, we sit down with guests from all walks of life to hear their stories, remove stigmas, and understand what makes them tick. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Conversations with Nick Thompson. I am your host, Nick Thompson. Today is a fun episode for me. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about prepping for this show is how important self-care is, and also how important it is to grow as an individual. What I really wanted to focus on lately is finding time for me. Life's been a little crazy. What I've realized is a lot of what had worked for me in the past isn't going to be the same experience as it is going to be now. So one thing that's been really important for me in my self-growth and my mental health, my overall wellness, is finding new ways to not just be positive or change my outlook on life or work out more, but find things that actually light up my mind, find things that inspire me, but also help me grow and become a better person. You know, to be clear, I don't believe in being overly positive or pretending something isn't wrong when something is wrong. I believe we should always be aware and truthful with what's going on in our world, not just for ourselves, but with the people around us, so you can have a community and you can learn from each other. One of the things that I have done for myself, and this is not overnight, I mean, this is years and years and years of work. I have become a completely different person than I was 10 years ago, or that I was really growing up. I spent a lot of time kind of inside. I spent a lot of time watching movies, watching TV shows, exercising, yes, maybe 3 times a week. But what I really wasn't doing was giving myself the opportunity to learn what I need to feel better, to grow as a person and be my best self. So I started doing things, and again, this has taken place over many, many, many years, but practicing yoga, going on regular walks, being outside. The sun does wonders for our body, not just mentally, but physically. It actually regulates your nervous system. So being outside, getting as much sun, especially in Chicago, when 6 months of the year we don't have that much sun. What really helps is introspection. Being honest with yourself and talking to yourself is what really helped me become a better version of who I was growing up and a number of years ago. What keeps me there is having that introspection, that mindset that I'm always going to be a work in progress. I'm always going to be working to be a better version of myself. I'm always going to be working to evolve. And that doesn't mean all the time. That doesn't even mean most of the time, but I'm always going to be working on myself in some way, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through physically, whether it's through nourishing my bodies in the right way, or just listening to my body on what I need. Do I need a walk? Do I need to clear my mind? Do I need silence? Do I need noise? Listening to my body, getting inside myself, and being introspective are really, really tough to do. And it is again, learned years and years of work. But what that got me thinking about this week was, who is a normal person like myself that would be great? And that's where I came up with today's guest, who's Case Kenny. Case is very aligned with self-improvement, being mindful of himself. He's a outstanding content producer, even though he describes himself as more of a writer. But he has content, best-selling author, and all of his content is around bettering yourself, whether it's through dating, whether it's getting over a breakup, whether it's from his workbooks on just becoming more mindful. He's very positive guy. So not to say that, but he's also very realistic with himself. Some of you may follow him. Some of you may know him. He's a Chicago guy, just like myself. He actually posts positive notes all around the city of Chicago, and that's kind of where he started. He's authored a number of self-guided courses and journals, all from his experience of being mindful and trying to better himself. So we talk a lot about his process for content. He says he's a writer first. So what's his writing process like? It really gave me perspective as I started listening to his podcast. His podcast is just very much him taking his life experience and trying to help someone else. And I think that's a beautiful community you create when you're just being a regular human being interacting with another human being, whether that forum be in real life, over Zoom, through a podcast, through a workbook. I had never met Case before this. I had followed him on social media. It was a matter of seconds before realizing, wow, we can have real talk. He's a normal guy. We even talk about what it's like learning from normal people and how that's so much more relevant because you've had similar experiences. So I hope that you guys find this conversation fresh and real, which I think you will. We are two men talking about mental health, personal growth, learning from one another, and what it's like to go through some of the experiences that we've gone through. We talk a little bit about Chicago, a little bit about Lollapalooza, and I hope that you all find some inspiration for yourself and maybe a new idea or a tactic or a process that you can do to help improve yourself just by hearing two normal people having a conversation. So thank you. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I will really look forward to hearing how this impacts all of you. Today we have Case Kenny as our guest. He's a fellow Chicagoan, a recording artist, the best-selling author of Single Is Your Superpower and a new book, But First, Inner Peace. He's additionally authored a number of different journals for self-help and is the host of a podcast titled New Mindset, Who Dis? And I want to know about this, but you were brave enough to put your cell phone number all over the internet. Thanks for coming on the show, Case. Nice to have you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So I'm going to start off with why are you brave enough to put your phone number everywhere on the internet?
Well, technically, the spoiler would be that's like my second number. It's not my primary number. It's a number that I use to interact with people. But I like treat it like a number. Like I try to respond to as many people as I can. It's a great way to like connect with people who show me love and listen to my podcast and whatnot. So I started doing that a while back when that like was like kind of like a newer thing for like, you know, influencers or whatever you want to call people sharing numbers. And so it's been a cool way to connect with people outside of the old DM. So it's been a cool way to just experience the people who like listen and support me.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And one of the things I noticed about you is that you do have a very good connection with your audience through social media. So seeing your phone number in a couple different areas as I was looking into you a little bit more, even if it's a second phone number, it's very brave to have like another channel of communication. So I commend you for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound hokey, but I would be nothing without the people who support me and are interested in what I have to say and write and do. So, I mean, I try to spend as much time as humanly possible to interact with people. So, you know, whether it's brave or not, I don't really know. People tend to be pretty nice to me. No one tends to overstep any boundaries. So far, so good. I'll let you know if it goes downhill.
Yeah, definitely. So I have to ask you for a couple small talk questions just to break the ice here. What's one cell phone app or even computer app, iPad app that you can't live without that you find useful in pretty much every day? Can't be like texting.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of a lame answer, but I would say Spotify, just because all I do is music all day, every day, whether I'm creating music, listening to music, doing mixing, doing producing, or just like I've never written anything, and I'm a writer for a living. I've never written anything worth reading without music, without the right music. So I'm all music all the time. Spotify usually my go-to. So I would say that's probably like the simplest answer.
That's great. And you do some mixing on your own too, right? You blend and do some collaborations.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I've produced a couple original stuff, and I'm actually working on some tracks currently. But like to date, mostly just DJing and doing mixes and collaborations with other artists, where I mix together their tracks and tracks that I'm just into, alongside of my own audio, mindfulness audio. So just love music, especially dance music. Just makes me feel good, upbeat, energized, and I've found a way to work that into what I do professionally. So it's a cool medium for me to explore.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite artist?
Currently, as of the recording of this, is Lala Weekend also. So I'm like stoked for that. I would say I'm really into like a certain genre of dance music lately called tech house, kind of just a more
Okay.
A variety of houses. So John Summit is my boy right now. He's got some good tracks.
Very nice. You're going to Lala this weekend, I assume?
I am. I am. I mean, I live right around the corner from it. So I kind of, just because there's some artists that I want to see, why not? But I'll be in and out. I've gone too many years in a row to do the whole full Lala thing. So quick in and out.
Yeah, I hear you. This is actually the first year I'm going all 4 days. I usually do like one day, and that's more than enough. So I can.
God bless.
Understand.
Good luck, man. Good luck to you.
Yeah. I mean, I had to take Monday off of work just because I know I'm going to just be dead, like socially unable to have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds about right.
Who are you most excited to see?
Definitely John Summit. He'll be there, but I mean, like tonight's Metallica. Like I love Metallica. That's gonna be sick. Some of the pop people. I mean, it'll be cool to see Dua Lipa, Machine Gun Kelly, stuff like that. But the Solana Perry's stage is usually where I hang out for the dance music portion. So you catch me there for sure.
Very nice. What's your favorite? So we're both in Chicago. What's your favorite thing about Chicago? You've been here a little while now.
One of my friends makes fun of me because I said this one time offhand as like a joke. They're like, "Why don't you move to LA?" And I was like, "Well, I can't because LA doesn't have cool bridges." I like the bridges, honestly. Like we were talking beforehand. I live downtown, like on the river downtown, and I just think it's the most picturesque, cool, engineered architecture city in the world. You got all these bridges, you got this river, you got skyscrapers. It's just cool. I just love that so much. I like being in the hustle and bustle and like the energy. And I just like it a lot. And I just think it looks really cool.
It does look really cool. And it makes for some pretty cool scene in the Dark Knight trilogy too.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Imagine that. Yeah. A lot of movies use it because it's so immediately identifiable. Plus you got the L cruising by. Like it's like that's Chicago. You got trains, you got the L, you got bridges, you got a river, you got a huge lake, of course. Like Chicago's a unique place.
It is such a unique place. And I always feel, and some people don't like this, but I love how you have the downtown area, you have the river, you have the bridges, but then you have all these neighborhoods. And I always say neighborhoods are what make Chicago great, but you can go get such a different flavor of culture no matter what you're in the mood for just by traveling out to a neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean it's got a little variety and spice for everyone. You can go wherever you feel compelled to go, which is cool. And then downtown's kind of like home base, like reset there, and then go to whatever neighborhood you want. It's cool to have that variety.
Yeah, I love that. The other cool thing too is I heard this. I don't want to get fact checked, but I heard that like Chicago has the most parks of any city in the country, which is also kind of cool.
Really? There are a lot of parks. I can see that being true. That's the other great thing is that it is a city, but you got a lot of green space, quite in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. So let's let's dive in. Who is Case? Like where'd you come from? How did you end up here? You host a podcast now for about 4 years or maybe a little over 4 years. Tell us your journey. How did you get to who you are and how would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Like, I mean, by trade, just to start with a title, because we like titles and labels, I'm a writer and I'm a podcaster. I would say that's the simplest way to describe what I do. But really, my passion and what I write and podcast and create music about is mindfulness, the topic of mindfulness, which obviously could take a lot of different forms. But that's what I'm passionate about, sharing my love and sharing the power of mindfulness in as many different mediums as possible, whether it's through music or the written word or journaling or the spoken word and podcasting or whatever it may be. Mindfulness, the power of self-awareness, the power of improving yourself through really intentional means. I just have found immense power in it. I'm 34. Prior to being 33, I worked in corporate America. I had a job for a long time. Worked at, did sales for a company for a long time. Prior to that, I worked in advertising. But I went all in on the podcast and writing and being an author and all that about a year ago. And it's been super rewarding. A lot of people know me from Instagram, where I like write little quotes on like coffee cups or little
Yeah.
post-its around Chicago, and I put them around Chicago. That's kind of just a way to amplify my message. But at my core, I'm an author. I'm in love with words. I love words. I love sentences. I love reading them. I love writing them. And I think there's just so much power in words and perspective. And I think the gift that I've been given in life, if I can be so bold to say I've been given a gift, is that of simplifying things. I have found that I can approach my life and the world around me in pretty simple terms, ups and downs, just like everyone else. But I've always stayed very grounded in the assumptions I make and the conclusions I draw about life. So I just sit down and I write and I share and I produce around what I observe about life. And it's the greatest gift that it helps people. And it's cool to live in the year 2022 where you could do this for a living. I joke that I share my feelings for a living, which really is pretty accurate, just because there's not really a title that would fit what I do exactly. So it really is a gift and a privilege to be able to do this, to be on a podcast, to talk about what I love. And I'd say that's a decent summary of who I am as of current.
No, that's great. And first of all, kudos to you on the success. In the last year, you've really accomplished a lot, but even with your podcasting and your new book coming out, so congratulations on that. When did you discover mindfulness? Because I think, a little bit of background, like I've always been kind of self-aware, but I don't think I discovered mindfulness until maybe like 5 years ago. And I'm 37, so we're not too far off in age, but like,
Yep.
The self-awareness was there, but like how to be mindful about it took forever to come. So I'm curious when you were able to sort of figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would say pretty similar. Like I've always been pretty self-aware. Like I've always been pretty capable of cutting through the fluff in my inner life, right? An anxious feeling is an anxious feeling, but it's okay because I am this. Like I've always been able to like do that pretty well. But I think like in my 20s, I was like, I wouldn't say I was anti self-help, but I was like kind of cynical about it. I'd be like, oh, self-help, a term like mindfulness. I would think about mindfulness and I'd be like, oh, that's for hippies. Mindfulness is this esoteric thing. We're talking about chakras and we're talking about energies and aligning your frequencies. And I would kind of scoff at that a little bit, mostly because I didn't understand those components of mindfulness, which of course are very valid. So I just didn't really understand it. And then I don't know, I would say 28, like things just started to kind of click for me. I started the podcast. I started the podcast in response to just life. I'd gone through a breakup. I was kind of exhausted at my job, and I just kind of looked at myself. I was like, man, is this it? Is this all I got? Am I living my life? Is this my life, or am I living someone else's life? So I was like, let me challenge myself and start talking through these things. And the more I started doing this, 5 episodes, 10 episodes, 20 episodes, I was like, man, you know what? I'm just practicing being self-aware. I'm just practicing mindfulness. That's all it is. It's a super practical thing. So it was through that process that I came to realize that I was wired to practice mindfulness. And the most important point, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So it's like, I feel like self-awareness overdrive in a good way, and the ability to then communicate that in a good way. So it kind of came about just in response to my life. And then I think just growing up and maturing, like to realize that mindfulness isn't this, la-di-da thing where you've got to, go do a silent retreat and do all kinds of weird stuff. Like it's something that you could just do and practice and get so much value from. So yeah, just in love with the process.
I think that's a phenomenal way to put it. I'm curious. So you're like 28 years old. You're like at your job. You're getting burnt out already. What was that feeling for you? Like, how did you handle feeling burnt out at 28 when like you look ahead and I go through this too. And this, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble at work, but like I get so burnt out at work so easily. And it's that, how do I channel that into something that when you're working, you're not like working, you don't think of it that way. So what was going on in your head when you're feeling like I'm burnt out, I'm in this sales job, how'd you pull yourself out of that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I worked at a great company with great people, and I was fortunate to rise through the ranks there. So I led a team, and they were great, and took a lot of the stress off the plate. But it's still sales. It's still it could be very overwhelming and stressful. I think at the time, I just like, I always knew that I wanted to be a writer in some form, but I always knew that to be a great writer, you need life experience. Like, I don't doubt that there's good young writers out there, but to truly have perspective, you need to have some years under your belt. Sound like an old person saying that, but it's true. Like, I always used to think I was going to be a great writer when I was 22, and I could probably write decent at 22, but what was I going to talk about when I'm 22? You know what I mean? So I kind of always kept that under my hat and was like, you know, it's okay. I'm going to work this job. I'm going to make my money. I'm going to gain valuable hard skills, sales, negotiating, sales. What a great skill. So I just kind of was very pragmatic about it. I'm like, this is setting me up for the future. Patience. This is setting me up for my next stage in life. And like, knowing that like when I do go into that stage, namely entrepreneurship, being an author, being a writer on my own, that, you know, I am banking money right now to be confident when I do that, to give myself leverage. Like, I talk a lot about entrepreneurship to people, and it's like, I think the best thing you could do as an entrepreneur is give yourself leverage when you do go full time as an entrepreneur, aka have a financial foundation so that you're not making rash decisions and desperate decisions when you are an entrepreneur. So I kind of had that foresight for myself. So I, you know, they kind of just kept focusing on the upside, the value, the things that I was doing. And all the while I was doing the podcast and writing, so I could see where the puck was going. It wasn't just blind faith that one day I will do something. It was like, no, I'm earning it right now, and I'm making money on the side, and I have a 401k, full benefits, healthcare. Like, I'm in a great pragmatic position. So pretty practical, not a whole lot of mindfulness involved there, other than the fact of being aware of the value of things, the value of balance, while working for something that I want. And you know, it got me through it, and it worked out really well.
Well, I think it's what's interesting about that is instead of getting in this mindset of, oh my God, this is my life, you actually like, this is my life right now. It's a stepping stone. I have a goal. I have a vision for myself. I have a vision for what I'm going to be. And this is part of that stairway to heaven, or that bridge to where I want to go. And it's a good way to look at it and kind of keep you motivated, knowing that this isn't all there is. So I think it's pretty mindful.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, it was you verbalized it better. This is my life right now. It's not my life holistically. I got a lot more years to live, hopefully. Right? This is my life right now.
Right.
And that's fine. And that's great. Right? Fingers crossed.
So you say you always knew you wanted to be a writer, and it's funny you say that, because I used to write and want to be a screenwriter when I was younger. One of my like 5 things I wanted to be, and I always felt like as I was writing, everything was wonderful. I'm like 14 years old, and like you look back on it and you're just like, oh, I didn't have any idea what any of these characters' motivations were or anything. I was just literally writing scenes. So what's the first thing you remember writing?
Oh man. I remember as a kid, right? Like, I was into the, you know, as a little boy, interested in like the Civil War. I remember writing like a summary of the Battle of Antietam. Cool stuff, man. Really cool stuff. I remember that. Yeah.
That's
stuff
awesome.
Like that. But I certainly never thought that I would be a self-help writer. And I don't really like that title, but you know, people like labels, so it's helpful to, you know, I'm in the self-development space, I'm in the self-help space. I prefer mindfulness, but it is what it is. Certainly never expected I would be writing in this space, which is the funniest thing in the world, much less writing dating advice, which has me rolling on the floor every time I describe the fact that I do that. So that's life for you. I just kept pulling on this string of passion, and here it's led me here. And you know, I like writing nonfiction. I like writing I statements. You know, things that I have learned and observed. And you know, one day I definitely want to write, you know, some fiction and or something, some hybrid kind of thing. But for now, it's like I just get to sit down and be honest. Like, great writing comes from pure honesty, and I get to do that every single day. So it's a great inner help for me, and it helps other people. And you know, my vocabulary has increased. I know plenty of large words now, which is fantastic. I learned the word ostentatious the other day. Like, what a great freaking word. Oh. So yeah, it's a win-win, you know.
Can you define ostentatious for us?
I believe it's like over the top, bragging, gaudy-ish. Someone can fact check me on that.
My first writing project that I remember doing was actually 4th grade. and it was on the JFK assassination. And I was kind of like digging history a little. Sounds like you were too.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this photo of Lyndon Johnson being sworn in after JFK was assassinated, and I was like, he doesn't look sad. And I'm stupid fourth grade. I thought the president and vice president were like best friends. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, he doesn't look like he's that sad. And so I started like reading all the, at the time, conspiracy theories about Lyndon Johnson being involved. I wrote this elaborate paper in fourth grade about how I felt like he could have been responsible for the assassination of JFK.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's kind of funny.
Very,
that's funny. Get your
well, that's kind of like, I know, right? Yeah, I'll maybe get called by Alex Jones or something to come on and talk about this stuff. But but I want to go back to something you said a minute ago, because I agree with you, and I hate labels. But you were saying, you don't like labels, but people would label you, I think you said, as like a self-help author. How do you feel about labels? Like, why do you dislike them? And what do you think the impact is that we have so many labels for people?
Yeah, I think it depends on the context. Within self-help, I don't really like labels because they carry stigmas. Like namely in my 20s, if I saw the term self-help, I would think, oh, well, that means something's wrong with you and you need help. Yes. And it's just like, that's carried with me. So labels, I feel like, sometimes get in the way of people who have great messages to deliver. Like I don't want anyone to ever call me a motivational speaker, although I do a lot of speaking. But like the term motivational speaker makes me think of someone, encouraging someone to run across coals and say, I love myself. And even though maybe that is part of what I would do, but it kind of dilutes the message before the message is even delivered. So, I try to keep things a little open to interpretation so that people are open to, receiving a message. But, some areas, labels are important, like MD, doctor. I want to know you're a doctor. Please have that label. But, in self-help, I like to keep it a little broader.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing with self-help, and I was the same way, right? Like I remember growing up and like, thinking something was off, like, with my mental health, but not really knowing what it was until I started to see like other people talk about it. I'm like, oh, I feel like that. Oh, I feel like that. But the stigmas have always been there. And when you start applying a stigma like you're a self-help author, you're a self-help motivational speaker, whatever it is, you're immediately turning someone off who may find you very relatable. And vice versa, like you're getting robbed of a potential connection as well. And that's why actually the point of this whole podcast and launching this was, I hate stigmas and labels, because I don't think, and to your point, doctors, yes, important, but I don't think that when we label people as, oh, that's the self-help guy, or that's the conspiracy theory person, you just immediately eliminate every other thing that could possibly come out of it. And it's just sad, and it's unfortunate, because I think we miss a lot of connections with that.
Yeah, that's well said, man. Same page, same exact page. I remember I did this thing on Fox one time with Ice-T, and the celebrity actor, and he was talking before, and he was like, "Oh, Case, it says here you're a dating expert." And I wasn't going to correct him in the moment, because you're going to destroy your credibility by being like, well, no, not really. But like, dating expert is a funny thing to me as well. Like, I have perspective on dating that's helped people, certainly. But if I were to come across someone and they were to introduce themselves as a dating expert to me, I would be like, you're an expert on dating. You're an expert on the most emotional, vulnerable, no blueprint available thing in the world. Like, it just raises questions. So like, and I feel a lot of other people think that way too. And so like, I have no doubt that a dating expert has immense value to offer. But again, the title in this day and age where social media has made people so skeptical of each other and cynical of each other, it's exactly what you said. Like, people can, miss the message before it's even delivered. Now all of a sudden you have this understanding that here's this person with this, here we go, ostentatious title coming in here. Who are they to say they're an expert? Like, people get offended easily. So yeah, that's why, like, I just, like, to be honest, I used to, and I haven't done it in a while, I used to refer to myself as a dude bro guy, all one word, because I used to be kind of bro-y, I suppose. And I was like, that's all who I am. I'm just a guy. I'm just a dude. I'm just a bro, like, just sharing my love for certain things, and I try to be helpful, and that's it. And my agent and my mentor was like, well, no, you can't do that because you gotta be an expert in this day and age. So
Right.
it's always been this
Right.
battle for me of like, who do I want to be? Having this identity crisis. So it's an interesting subject to me as well.
You know what's interesting is I saw the Dude Bro guy in an article I read about you from a little while ago, and I don't get that impression at all from any interaction. I mean, we've had a few interactions like over email, but I didn't get that from your social media. I didn't get that from the things that you talk about. So
Yeah.
how'd you come up? What made you a bro? I guess let's go there, or a dude bro.
Well, I guess it was kind of a joking thing because if I look at my interests, I like house music, I like lifting weights, I like Chipotle. I don't know. I'll play video games, like just like very normal stuff. I think was what I was trying to get at. I'm just a normal guy. Like I'm not more enlightened than the average person. I spend a lot of time reading. I spend a lot of time journaling and considering and doing all these things. So maybe in that sense, I've elevated myself. But other than that, I'm a normal freaking dude, and that's what I stand on. Because I think about like this day and age, for instance. I think about today's thought leaders. I think about the people who have immense value to offer.
Who says
books
someone's
and
a thought
podcasts.
leader too?
Well, that's another thing. That's another thing. Right. We debate the titles all day. But it's like, I think in this day and age about like the type of people that I gravitate towards, I don't gravitate towards the best of the best, the experts, the thought leaders. I gravitate towards normal people who have experience in a certain area and have the ability to communicate that perspective. That's why, like, for example, I love the site Reddit. Reddit is so incredible because it's normal people that are just sharing their stories. And I've been so inspired and I've learned so many things there that I don't think I've learned if I go listen to the best of how I built this podcast or Joe Rogan with the biggest names in the world on there. I like learning from normal people because they have normal perspective and hopefully normal egos and normal vulnerabilities. So I think a lot of people are going that way. They like learning from normal people like you, like me, and the value that we could bring. So I'm like very leaned into that on my end is the way that I brand myself.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's a brand per se, but I know what you mean. Like you are just this common guy that if I met you on the street, I would probably talk video games or sports or something along that and not even know. That's definitely how I approach it too. I mean, it's so funny because people get not freaked out. They get very excited sometimes when they meet Danielle and I. And to me, it's like, I'm literally like this normal dude. We're this normal couple. We're out to lunch. We're getting coffee. We're on a walk, like going to Lala, whatever it is. And people just, they get so excited. And that's the part to me that's always going to be a little weird to adjust to because I'm just a normal guy like you. And I want to spread some positivity in the world, and I want to, use the platform that I've been gifted as something that helps people, that makes the world a little bit of a better place, or in this case, removes stigmas. So it's good to hear that, and I think you're right too. Like the trend isn't let's listen to experts, let's listen to thought leaders, let's listen to even celebrities. I think those days are gone. Like everyone up there's like way out of touch with the common folks and what we're dealing with and talking with day to day.
Amen, man. Freaking men. Yeah, I mean, intention really matters. Like what you just described for yourself and what you want to do amidst having a platform that, has been, given to you by the elevation from, being on TV. Like that matters to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it puts you in this weird world. I can only imagine. But I think the intention and the grounding you have is what makes all the difference. Love to see it. Love to see it. But yeah, man, we're on the same page for sure.
Why don't you tell us about your writing process? Because I feel like the way you're creative, you probably have a very unique way of going about writing, especially since it's nonfiction and a little bit about your life and experiences.
Yeah, I would say so. I talked to a lot of writers, and like my process is pretty simple. I sit in my chair overlooking the river. I throw my headphones on. I throw as loud house music in my face, and I write. But I think my process is something that's been gifted to me. I think we've all been given gifts and talents. Mine, to what I said, I think is simplifying things. But if I can give myself a prompt, I can sit down and in 30 minutes, I can write 3,000 to 4,000 words. It just like flows out of me. But I need a prompt. I need a prompt. I need something to react to. I need a question to ask myself. I need someone else's opinion that I could disagree with or agree with in my own way. I need that prompt. And as long as I could find a good, meaty prompt, I'm off to the races, and I can write and I can write and I can write. And that's my gift, I think. I think so, and some other people might find it helpful. But yeah, that's my process. I sit down and I got to get it all out, and it's kind of strange. I got to get it all out fast. Like, I'm very impatient when I write, and it's funny if you ever look at a draft of something I write. The first draft, it's like blah, 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 like nothing is spelled correctly. And then I'll come back and I'll fix it all. But it's like in the moment, it's like I'm just so compelled by the words, and I can see them like way ahead, and it just flows out of me, and I write really quick. And then I'll go back in and make it pretty. But yeah, that's my process. Music plus prompt equals lots of words quickly plus an editing session. That's the money.
That's awesome. I write the same way, but not in any order. It's like literally like the end comes out, then the beginning comes out, then the middle comes out, then the end changes, and that's for fiction and nonfiction. So it's funny to hear people's processes like that. But yours, what was where do you get your prompts? Do you get inspired by something someone says, something in your own mind, combination?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So I have a doc ongoing that I'm always writing things down in, things I heard, random things. I love reacting to memes and quotes on Instagram, funny things people have shared. TikTok is like a treasure trove of things to react to. I love reacting to other people in the space. I love going to places like Thought Catalog, for instance. Just going there and seeing what someone wrote and being like, I don't think that's the full picture. Let me offer my take on it, or let me disagree, or let me agree, whatever it is. Like, yeah, a lot of times in writing, I think writers are pressured to like recreate the wheel every time they write. Whereas for me, it's like I just want to find something, one, that clearly is worthy of reacting to, that is worthy of insight because it's relatable, and then I just do my thing, and I really only try to approach subjects that I have experience with, either direct experience or like very close observation. So like I get a lot of DMs, people are like, Case, like, can you talk about like dating with kids or like getting through a divorce? And I'm like, I don't think, I think I would be a little bit disingenuous if I were to try to give advice there. Like I could give you some general thoughts, but like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't have any friends in either bucket, and I've never been through it myself. So I'm going to stay away from that topic. So I try to stay on topics that, again, are true to me.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And it kind of ties into what you were saying earlier too, when, you're speaking from your experiences. You're not a dating expert. You have experiences that might provide value to someone who's been through something similar or felt a certain way. That doesn't make you dating expert or divorce counseling expert or anything. And the funny thing that I can relate to with that is the amount of people that DM me, or even on shows, if they ask a question, they ask me for dating advice. And it's like, I wasn't successful at dating. I had to go into like a pod where I couldn't see someone to get them to agree to marry me. Like I'm not the success story for traditional dating or what's going on.
That's so funny.
But it's funny. So it is funny. I mean, I'm like, well, communication's important, and it's like, the bullet points and things, but it's like, by the way, I can even say some of these things. It doesn't mean I'm very good at practicing them. It all takes work.
Yeah.
So
that's so funny.
Do you want to? Do you want to tell us a little bit about? Let's do. But first, Inner Peace. Your book just came out maybe a month ago, I think it was. Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book, and then tell us what your prompt was to get started there?
Oh yeah, great question. Yeah, so I mean the book, But First, Inner Peace. It's a half book, half journal. So it's 400 pages. Maybe 350 of those is my writing and my perspective, and the rest are just little journal prompts. And basically, it's a manifestation experience. The prompt was, everyone on TikTok is talking about manifestation. Every girl gets up in the morning, goes on her hot girl walk, and then manifests. And I was like, that's awesome. I love that people are leaning into these things, but what is manifesting? Then I started looking around, and again, there's no wrong way to manifest, of course. But people were doing different things. They were just writing down, I deserve love 10 times. I deserve money 10 times, and putting it on a vision board and calling that manifesting. Sure, it's manifesting. But again, my whole thing is practicality. Is that really going to help you? Well, maybe, because it keeps your mind focused and, goals are helpful. But I was like, what's worked in my life? When I sit down and I look back at a time where I was like, I want this and I have it today. What got me here? It wasn't reading The Secret. It wasn't a vision board. Although, again, it's helpful. It was understanding why I'm worthy of getting that thing. Why do I deserve to be a writer? Okay, well, I could tell you why. One, I'm obsessed with it. Two, I practice all day, every day. 10,000 hours is nothing. I've written for more than that. Perspective, skills, talents, the whole thing. So I sat down and I was like, hey, here's why. Here's why I believe it. Not that not that it should be given to me, but that I'm working for it, that I understand what it takes and so on and so forth. So I was like, same with love. It's like, why do you deserve a partner? Well, it's because you're honest, you're loving, you're selfless. You deserve the same things in a partner, right? So I was like, that to me, that's manifesting. Manifesting isn't knowing what you deserve, it's knowing why you deserve it. And once you could break through that, well, then it's only a matter of time. So I was like, let me create a journal book experience that helps people over the course of 60 days create a new chapter in their life where they're manifesting something. So that's all it is, with basically the focus being before you can manifest what you want, before you could find the partner you deserve, the job you want, the big paycheck you want, you have to find a place of inner peace. That's a place that you could return to when things don't go well, when you don't have that partner, when you go on another bad date, when you have a bad day at your job. You have to be able to go home to a place of peace that keeps you on track. So basically the journal is about giving yourself peace and then manifesting what you want. And, it includes a lot of the questions that I encourage people to ask, a lot of perspective from the podcast. And it was a big success launching it maybe 3 weeks ago. And it's been great to sit down and do that and watch it help people now. It's been a long time working on it, so it's cool to sit back and just see it out in the wild.
No, that's awesome. And I think that message that you said about having that inner peace, something you can come back to, I couldn't have said that better myself. That is things in my life started changing when I was like, you know what? You are who you are. You're doing the best you can, and you're trying to always do the right thing, and you're always trying to help other people. This is who you are. There's going to be flaws to work on, but come back to that. You're a good person trying to do the right thing, and you're doing the best you can. And that has been it's helped remove anxiety. It's helped remove depression. It's helped all sorts of things. So I think that message in this book sounds like a great tool for people trying to find that. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me room to talk about it. I love to talk about myself and things that I make. But yeah, I totally agree. You got to have that place to return to.
Yeah. You know what else it does too? It's I actually call the first segment in the podcast Conversations with Myself, but it came from this idea of I'm unapologetically myself. And because I know that I'm trying to do the right thing, and it doesn't mean I'm not gonna make mistakes. I make them multiple times a day, but it's that feeling of I can just be myself, but that comes from that inner peace. So I really do think there's going to be a lot of value for people who are trying to find that. Love that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I love that word too. I like words. Inner peace is such a powerful thing. I think a lot of times in life we set goals I want to be happy, I want to be successful, I want to be fulfilled, I want to be confident. And I think that's great. I think a more controlled outcome is I want to be at peace. That's something that you can control. Mm-hmm. Life can certainly threaten that, but if you can find a way through your own means or borrow mine or take components of yours, you can create a place of inner peace for you that's always there. You can come home to. It might not be easy, but I think setting a goal for yourself, hey, I just want to be at peace in life. It's a great goal.
Yeah, and then the rest, it does come, believe it or not. It does come. Cool. Well, at this point, I'd love to give you an opportunity to ask me any questions you might have or anything you're curious about. That can be anything you want. I'm an open book.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So I was on, I'm forgetting her last name. I was on Kelly from season 1's podcast many moons ago.
Yes.
And her experience was seemingly the opposite of yours. So I'm just I'm sure you talk about these things all the time, but I'm curious, about the experience, rather than getting you just to describe how it was, what do you think you learned most through the experience? It's funny that people come to you for dating advice, but I'm sure you learned something very valuable through the experience. So I'm curious if you had to put your thumb on it, in a big zoomed out way, what have you learned about love, compatibility through the experience?
You, oh, that is probably the best question anyone's asked about the show, because usually it's like, what was it like? Well, like which part? Like there was a
I caught
million things
myself. I
going on for
wanted to
7
ask
weeks.
that. I wanted to, but no, let's go deeper.
Yeah. So what did I learned a number of things that I could really sum up to two. One, and this, you're going to like this. I had to find inner peace in a different scenario, because for me, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to the new, like I'm constantly listening to people talking, and that's something that helps me through hard times. It gives me something to do when I'm on a walk, all these things that I do. So we didn't have technology, and then they took away YouTube from our rooms. So I had to, the only form of any outside world was watching like regular TV. And I don't like to do that. So I had to sit with myself with no music, no podcasts, just a couple of books and a journal. And while we were filming, especially the pod stuff, which was about 10 days, but there's a buffer before and then a little buffer after. And I just had to kind of get comfortable with being myself, with silence, with writing without distractions. And I came back a different person, because I now know that I can put my phone down for a few hours and it's not going to matter. I can go on a walk in silence, and that's okay. Take in the leaves, take in the traffic, take in the birds. And so I learned that as an individual, which, hey, you don't need the stuff. Like you can just be with yourself, and it's okay. And then the other thing about love is and it builds off of that, like when you eliminate distractions, you open yourself up to build beautiful connections that you may not have otherwise had. Or for me, with our relationship, it was, we connected very quickly. Day 3 of 10, we were like, we don't want to date anybody else, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to trust the process and go through the experiment. But we figured that out. And then all we had to do was we had to talk to other people still, but like talk to each other to get to know each other. And then basically go home and think about the other person. And so when you eliminate these distractions, like your mind and your heart opens up to building connections that you may miss. So I think learning there is, get off our phones all the time. We don't always need to be connected. You don't always need to have 52 conversations going on Hinge. It's okay to give someone your attention. It's okay to give yourself the attention to open up. And if you do, you can really make a meaningful connection that you may not make if you're sitting, on that bad date, and you've decided it's a bad date, and you've got 4 other conversations going and 2 more dates coming up in the next week, and you're not giving anyone the right attention, and you're not giving yourself the openness to build these connections. So I feel like, and I never was someone who would serial date. I was pretty picky, but like getting in this sort of extreme environment, I was able to really like open myself up in a way where I wasn't being distracted by, did this person return my comment? Do they like me too? Am I going to get paired with them? And of course, getting rid of like work and all that stuff helps too. But I really think that is what helped me open up and really connect with Danielle in a meaningful way.
Man, that's big. I'm gonna have to do a pod topic on that, because that is like such great validation of something that I like really firmly believe in, but I haven't really found the way to vocalize it like you did. Like I think a lot of times in life we think that to become more, or to like finally get that thing we want, we have to do more and become more ourselves. And like practically, to what you said, it's about literally doing less, removing distractions, removing the noise, but also too in like our inner life, it's about shedding the things that aren't us, shedding the things that aren't true to what we're doing. It's about simplifying. It's about becoming less and getting more. It's like, I have a little thing I talk a lot about. It's like, life isn't always about more or better. It's about different and simpler.
Yes.
And I think that's so true, especially like you said it so well. It's like, when even if you're, I applaud people who are like, I want a partner, and therefore they're going on as many dates as possible. I think that's dope. Great. You're actually, you're not one of those people who bemoans being single but never goes on dates. But alongside of that, it's like, I mean, if like, how do you measure compatibility if you've got a date every night, you've got a roster of 12 people, where do you find the time to quiet your mind and truly get honest about yourself? So like that's super interesting to think about, like removing even like just like technology from the equation, removing that stimulus to give you time to think and journal and write or whatever your method is. Like, I love that. That's super powerful perspective.
I totally agree. And the night that I realized I was in love with Danielle, which was literally like night 3, we had talked and she had said she was feeling, that way. And I was like, well, I am too, but I was like trusting the process. And I went back and I wrote a journal, and I wrote what started out as a journal ended up being a letter to her that I gave her on the day we proposed. But it was that process of like reflecting, thinking, and writing it out that I realized, oh my God, I am in love with her. And I would have never done any of that if that was a normal date in Chicago here or wherever. I would have gone on that date. I would have been like, maybe I like him, maybe I don't, but I never would have gone through that process of thinking about it and writing it out and having that realization.
Wow. So I'm sure the other question you get is, so like, how does physical attraction play into relationships? Like, what are your thoughts in general on that? I talk to people all the time, and I've done so many episodes. Like, I sound like a cliche broken record where I'm talking about it's what's inside that matters and blah, 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 blah. But you can't deny, obviously, that attraction is important. But a lot of people have an inflated belief in attraction, physical attraction, from the get-go as like as a fact check of a relationship's potential. So what are your thoughts in general? Like, what do you think the experience taught you about going within first as a component of compatibility, then the other, or a balance, or like what are your thoughts?
I think I could go on and on and on about this for hours with you probably, but overall, I think I'm not going to be naive and say you don't have to be physically attracted to the person, but how you get to that point can vary. So we're visual creatures, right? Our first impression of something, in most cases, is how we see it, right?
Right.
You can have a phone call with someone you've never met before, and then it's voice, right? But in dating, it's that picture or that person that I saw, and that's your first impression is, what does this person look like? So it's just in culture, it's in society, that's just the way we're built. So I think that what that does, though, is that inhibits that ability to grow, in some cases, grow an attraction emotionally that leads to a physical attraction. And so did I think about what Danielle looked like? Yes and no. Like, I didn't really care by the time. And of course, as you're standing there and you're like going to see the person for the first time, and you're like, what the hell are they going to look like? What if they don't like what I look like? Like, you think about those things, but it was never something we talked about ahead of time. I don't think we had one word other than saying how tall we were, because I'm 6'5", she was 5'7", and or she is 5'7", and so I think outside of that, it was just so easy to build that connection that I knew I was going to be attracted to her at the very least, because to me, like, she was attractive on the inside. And it sounds so cliche, and that's the whole point of the show, right? But ultimately, I think what we should do is not count people out because they're not physically attracted, but take the time. Again, it comes back to the same thing. Take the time to get to know someone, because you never know. You hear plenty of stories. I'm sure you know people that were friends forever, and then all of a sudden one day it clicked and they were attracted to each other, and then they get together. Like, I know people like that. I've seen that happen before. So sometimes it is just getting to know someone, and you don't have to think they're attractive out of the gate. You can take the time to get to know them. That's another thing. I think everyone rushes a little bit too. So it's like, you go on this date and this person doesn't look like they look in their profile pictures because they put on a bunch of filters or wearing their hair different or change their hair color. Like, that stuff is so rudimentary and amateur to think that I feel like if you take the time to get to know someone, that physical attraction can grow. And I've always thought that, but like, I think that even more now, having gone through the Love is Blind experience and having to build a connection through a freaking wall, literally through a wall, and over speakers. Like, you don't even really hear each other. So I'm biased a little. Only a handful of people have gone through this experience, but I do believe if people take the time to get to know someone, it can lead to a physical attraction if it's not there on the onset.
Yeah, it's such an interesting perspective because I feel like a lot of times we have the whole order of operations messed up. Like we forgot what is it called, PEMDAS. We forgot everything. It's like we think that in order to get to an emotional connection, you first have to check the box for physical attraction, which isn't necessarily the case. Like it could go the other way. And it's not to say that, oh, forget how someone looks like. To your point, let's be freaking real. Of course not. But it's like leaving room for maybe a different order and still truly have both connections in both cases. But we very much limit ourselves when we approach it as like, oh, not attractive physically or not 100% attractive physically. Therefore, we're not even going to get to the consideration stage of emotional attraction, compatibility, whatever. So love that. Super, super insightful.
And physical,
I'll react to that.
Yeah. Physical comes and goes. Like that's the thing. It can be there. It can go away. And if you have that emotional connection with someone, like, that's going to be there because you're going to know them at their worst. You're going to love them at their best. You're going to love them when they're somewhere in the middle, which is going to be most of the time. Like it's always there, where the physical stuff can vary. Like you could see a guy or a gal or someone all dressed up in a certain kind of way at a wedding or a different type of event. And then that's not how they ever dress in any other scenario. And now they're different. Like, if you have that emotional connection, that kind of stuff doesn't matter. But I feel like it matters a lot when people are in relationships now or starting
100%.
And trying to rush them.
100%.
Rush them in some cases
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So interesting, man. Yeah, I think people get a lot of value from that. It's, I think that kind of perspective certainly comes with age and growth and maturity. But I think, it could definitely save a lot of time and, open you up to people that, maybe you wouldn't consider by just taking a step back and realizing that. So I love that.
Yeah, and it comes down to give people a chance, right? I mean, you people look at Danielle sometimes, they're like, oh, she's like a model. She's beautiful, and she is like a model. I mean, I look at her all the time and I'm just like, Jesus, I'm like, she's beautiful. But she's more beautiful than a model to me because like I know who she is on the inside and I know how she feels about me, and that kind of connection, like it doesn't matter what she looks like. It doesn't matter as we get older. Like that kind of stuff is going to be second tier to that emotional connection.
I love that, man. Go off. That's sick.
Yeah. I know. Cool. Well, Case, is there anything that you want to plug or anything that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It means a lot to have a conversation like this, with a Chicago guy and someone with the perspective that you have. Yeah, I mean, if you want to listen to the podcast, it's called New Mindset Who Dis. It's anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're interested in journaling, I think a lot of what we just talked about, if that appeals to you and you want to discover your own form of inner peace, you want to create your own, you want to be more aware, I think journaling is such a powerful tool. And, I've created a bunch of journals and you can get them at newmindsetwhodis.com, or create your own, get a blank notebook and go off and journal. You don't have to buy mine. But I think it's such a powerful thing. But I appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about myself. It's great.
No, absolutely. And where can we find you on Instagram or social?
It's case.kenny. Case.kenny. Yeah, just search Case Kenny on any social platform. You'll find me.
Great. And we'll also have the links below wherever you're listening to his book, his journals, the podcast, and Instagram. So, Case, thanks again for coming on, man. This was a really good conversation. I appreciate your honesty and authenticity throughout.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And I'll see you at Lala in your Hawaiian shirt there.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Conversations with Nick Thompson. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Links can be found in the description below, and we can't wait to see you next time.